Alright guys, today we're doing something cool to the 88 GT. We're going to be removing two of the ugliest things on a stock 5.0. One is this tension pulley, the other is this alternator bracket. So it's going to accomplish several things. Number one, it'll drop about 5.5 pounds net weight loss. Another thing is it will resolve some issues with belt configuration when you've removed several components like the smog pump, air conditioning compressor, and it's going to clean the engine bay up because I'm going to be replacing it with everything that's in this little tiny box right here from Altered Fox. So yeah, let's get it done. Today, I'm going to be working on something that's been kind of a problem for a while now, ever since I took off the smog pump and the air conditioning compressor. So the problem is where I've got the tension pulley, due to the new configuration of the belt actually, after a while, will start touching right there at where the tension pulley is. So, you know, you'd have to replace the belt to get some more space in there. Or I can relocate the alternator, basically turning it and moving it up, completely eliminating the tension pulley, and that'll solve all those problems. So what I'm going to use to do that today is a new bracket from Altered Fox. So let's open this up and see what's inside. So right off the bat we have a new alternator bracket, polished billet. So it's a nice looking bracket there that'll help make the engine bay look nice and clean. We have another little bracket that'll go on top of the alternator, which is where our turnbuckle will attach to put tension on the belt. Here we've got our turnbuckle, and then we've got all of our hardware. An assortment of bolts and spacers to bolt all of this on. So we're going to install this and see where all of these pieces go. Alright, step one is to disconnect the battery. Since you're going to be pulling the alternator out, messing with the electrical system, you want to make sure this is completely disconnected. I'm going to remove it just so I can charge it over on the workbench. Alright, the next thing we want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and take off the Serpentine belt. Alright, so this is good as trash. We'll need a totally different size when we put on the new bracket and move this alternator. So, and I'll show you how to measure for that new size too once we get it all on here. Alright, so next I'm going to go ahead and take this tension pulley off just to get it out of the way. It is a 19mm right on the back here. So there's that. Just to go in the pile of parts. Won't need that anymore. Okay, so next I'm just going to disconnect the alternator, which you'll see behind the radiator hose here. There's a clip right on the top of the alternator. I don't know if you can see it from that camera angle or not, but it's right under there. There it is. There's another clip on the side of the alternator on this side. Again, I don't know if you can see it from that angle. there's just another clip over here where this wiring goes in. There we are. Just like that. Alright, so next we're going to take out these two bolts. So 14mm and a 5/8 right here. So pop both of those out and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, alternator's out of the way. Next thing we're going to do is get rid of this big old bracket. We'll start with that 14mm bolt right there. Alright, so the next bolt, it's a little hard to get to, it's kind of hard to see. I found it best to go with a 1/2" socket on an extension. This is a swivel extension, so my socket can pivot just a little bit. And to go in between the two coolant hoses here. Just kind of go in between those two hoses. If you can see that, and the bolt is back in there. You'll have to kind of climb around to see exactly where it is. Here, let me see if I can put a light on it real quick. Okay, I can't get a light on it, but I'm going to put my screwdriver on the end of the bolt. Basically right there. If you can see the end of the screwdriver through there, that's where the bolt is. Alright, so I got that one out. It's a 1/2" bolt, looks like that. Now the last one, it's even harder to see on the camera here, but it is all the way underneath here, kind of be right in this area, all the way back. Let's see, yeah, my finger's on it right here. It's actually closer to the bottom, like right about this area, straight back. And it's a 1/2" as well, so I'm just going to take that bolt out. Alright, falling right out of there. There's that bolt. So now you can see where those bolts were. One here, one here. They're just hard to see when it's down in there like that. So that's it, just 3 bolts holding that on. Right, so I cleaned this up a little bit in here. The next step is we're going to be putting on this bracket and the alternator and everything. So I've got the bracket here, and you'll see there's recesses in it where the bolt heads go, so this side goes out. The curve of this bracket follows the curve right here. Matches up perfect. It's actually going to bolt on to the water pump. It's a factory water pump. I'm going to get my hand in there without blocking the picture. It's going to be down here at the bottom, and then right here. So those holes should match up perfectly, should line up. So they provide a longer bolt, so this is going to be out here, and that'll bolt on. And then the top bolt, will go through the bracket like so. Then it's going to go through the alternator. So the alternator will be turned like that. Sorry. Alternator is going to be turned like that. It's going to go through the alternator. And then there'll be a spacer here. And then it's going to bolt in right here on the head where the previous bolt was for the bracket, alternator bracket. So let me get started. First I'm going to remove those two bolts from the water pump. Alright, so I've got both of these bolts out of the water pump. Alright, so here's the two bolts that came out of the water pump. The longer bolt is at the bottom of the water pump and it's further in. The top bolt is a little bit further out like that. So our two bolts here, which are the same thread, I believe it's a 5/16 bolt, 18 thread. Long bolt is going to replace the long bolt, and the shorter of the two is going to replace this shorter bolt. So you'll see these now line up straight here, and then our bracket is going to mount like so. So then we'll have spacers, just the longer spacer there and the shorter spacer there. Now sometimes these spacers aren't exactly right. You may have to trim some off of here, off of one of these, but I'll show you how to figure that out. These kits are set up for different water pumps, different year models of the 302. So that's why they have different size spacers in here than maybe what you need. So the best way to figure this out is to start by putting in the alternator, which we're going to do first. So with the alternator, it's going to use this top hole here through the alternator like that. Then you're going to add the spacer with the larger diameter hole there. And this is going to mount into the top of your cylinder head. Just bolt this right in and the alternator is going to hang there. It'll be turned straight up like this. And the bracket will be kind of off to the side. So that's how that's going to be turned. So let's go bolt this into the car. Alright, so this is a 5/16 hex, and it's going to bolt right here where one of the previous bolts was for the other alternator bracket. So we'll go turn it just like this. Bolt right here. And we'll just lower it down in there. Alright, it's there. Just need to tighten it. Okay, it doesn't need to be super tight. So now you can pivot this bracket around into position where it lines up with the bolt holes on the water pump. Alright, so now we've got our spacers here. Got a long one and a short one. The long one I see fits nice and snug. In fact, it might stay in there without even a bolt holding it in. So that one's in place. But I see now the short one does not have enough space to go in between the bracket and the water pump. So I'm going to have to trim about 1/2 inch or so off of the spacer. So I'll just get a little tool to mark that and cut this off, and that should go in there. Put this here, make a little mark. Alright, let's go and get this bracket bolted up on the bottom. Alright, so I did shorten this one up a bit, so now it should fit right in there. Yes, it's a good fit right there. Throw that bolt in and then tighten down, we'll tighten down the two down here in the water pump. Don't tighten the one for the alternator yet. Alright, so when it comes to putting on the turnbuckle, I'm going to be using this bolt right here on top of the water pump, and then using the other end will attach to a little bracket on top of the alternator. But this hose is going to be in the way, so what I'm going to do is shorten up the top end of the hose right under here to pull it back in a little bit so it's just further out of the way. You need to move it back probably about an inch. So I'm going to do that next. Okay. I'm going to take off just a little bit more. Alright, that looks good. It's pretty much right in line with the radiator hose here. Don't forget to tighten your hose back up. Alright, so both my bolts here on the bracket are tight. The one bolt through the alternator is still just a little loose, just hand tight. So next thing we're going to do is put the bracket on my alternator here. And what I mean by bracket is just the little piece that the turnbuckle is going to attach to, which is this hole here. So we're going to bolt through here, just like that, right on the back side of this threaded hole in the alternator bracket. Just have to move this hose out of the way. Okay, then you can just hand tighten that. Now it's time for our turnbuckle. Alright, so the lower end of the turnbuckle is going to mount on this bolt. And then there's a little skinny washer comes in the kit, just throw that on there. And then there's a locking nut that'll go on there. Just tighten that down. Alright, and then the top, screw on another bolt through here, slide on the turnbuckle. Again, another little skinny washer. The only thing this kit doesn't have is a nut for this bolt. So I've got one. So I had one laying in here in the garage. I'm just going to use it. I just put a little bit of a thread locker on here just to keep it from vibrating loose. Alright, so that's it. So I just need to tighten up this, and the one at the bottom of the alternator here. Tighten all of those up, and then should be good to go. So the next step will be measuring the, after I tighten those up, is measuring for the belt, and then we'll adjust the turnbuckle after we get our belt on, and we'll get the tightness right on there. So let me tighten these nuts up and the remaining bolts. And the bottom here, I'm actually going to wait until we get the belt on, then I'll tighten up the bottom one. So the next step is to measure for the belt. Alright, so everything's all put together. Let's go make sure this is all the way down tight, bringing the alternator in as close as possible this direction. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure for the belt. So my friend Justin taught me this way, and I think it works pretty well, because when you use a string, the the string will go down into the grooves here, and it'll kind of give you a false reading, and you'll end up with too short of a belt. But if you use an actual belt, your old belt that came off of here, and go ahead and cut it into, just make one cut in it. Then we're going to route it around in our new configuration. Now I've got it right here where I can mark the length of the new belt. And it's okay if it's a tiny bit loose, because again we still have to tighten up the alternator here, so just make sure it's in all the grooves on all the pulleys. Then you want to go ahead and mark it. That's it. Alright, so I've measured that belt where I made the mark. Came up at about 64 1/4. So I'm going to go up to the next half-inch mark, which would be 64 1/2. And that's the belt I'm going to get. So I'm going to run and grab that, and I'll be right back. Alright, picked up a new belt. Turns out the one closest to what I need that they carry is a 64 3/4. So that's what I ended up with. So I'm just going to wrap it around here. Go ahead and get it on this alternator, and I'm just going to slip it over right here. Alright, it is on all the way. So you can see there's still a good bit of movement. So now we just need to tighten down the turnbuckle. Move this just a bit. So I'll tighten it down by hand for a bit. There's a place right here to get a wrench on it. Then after you tighten it down, there's little stop nuts to keep it from coming loose. So I can see the belt's already getting much tighter. And you don't want any deflection. See, I can still move it up and down. You don't want any play like that. Keep it nice and tight. That'll keep it from coming off on the water pump right here. Alright, I think that'll do it. It's pretty solid. It moves a little, but it's always going to move some. But you don't really get any major deflection off of that, moving that up and down. Maybe a quarter inch. So now you just want to tighten down the lock nuts. Keep this from moving. Oh, that's not a 1/2 inch. Let me grab a different wrench. Yeah, this is a 1/2 inch. This is actually 14 millimeter. So just tighten that down. Tighten the bottom one. Alright, that'll do it. Everything's tight except for the bottom bolt on the alternator. That really long bolt we put through there. So I'm going to tighten that up, and that is the last thing on here. Alright, so that's it. So when you finish this, just kind of go through everything, make sure everything's tight. Your clamp on this hose that we cut shorter, both these bolts, the one on the bottom of the alternator, the two on the water pump, and then both ends of your turnbuckle here, where we bolted that on to the alternator and the water pump, and then also your lock nuts on each end of the turnbuckle, and then make sure your belt's tight enough, and we're good. That's it. So I'm going to crank this up and see how it runs. There's a bracket under there, looks good. And I'm going to be sure and plug up both of your cables back onto the alternator. And just a reminder, this kit is from Altered Fox, so check them out. They've got pretty much the best price on this kit. You can find this similar alternator bracket on other little Mustang part sites, but they're typically a little more expensive. So check out Altered Fox, see what you think about the price. Also, please subscribe. I've got more videos coming up this summer, and you don't want to miss those. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. It's been a few weeks since I've installed this. I just wanted to give you a little update from Altered Fox. You know, I had to provide my own nut for this bolt because the one that came with it was too long or too deep to go on here for the plastic insert, locking nut to go on there all the way. And then also this was too long to have the aluminum sleeve on there to move this turnbuckle out and still have room for the nut on the end. So you can see how the turnbuckle is kind of crooked there. I think it would look better if it was just straight. So now all of these kits will include two slim locking nuts. You can see how slim they are. They only have a couple of threads, so you'll just want to tighten these to maybe 15-20 foot-pounds. And then I should be able to fit this sleeve on here, and then the turnbuckle, and bring this out. So I'm going to swap this out real quick, and then we'll see what it looks like. Alright, I've got the new nuts on there. This one looks good. Just a thread of the bolt to spare there. And this nut is on, plus the 1/2-inch spacer is on there. So that would move this out, and there's more space between the radiator hoses now. So yeah, that's it. And again, thanks for sticking around for this extra footage. And yeah, like I said, both of these nuts now come in the kit. They're stainless steel, and they're just a thin jam nut, basically. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon.